Today is Thursday, October 16th, and this is still week 8 of the 2025 college football season, and this is the week of the Ole Miss game. Georgia has its big game against Ole Miss coming up on Saturday. Be 3:30 between the hedges back in Athens after being on the road at Auburn last week. So, this is going to be a little bit of a quick hitter. You can tell if you're watching on the video podcast, this is not my normal surroundings. I am traveling for other work purposes this week. So I apologize. It's been a little bit of a crazy busy week with a lot of travel. So I am having to try to cut this short, but I did want to bring at least a little something to you. It is the Daily Dawg, and if I don't come every day, or not every day, and by the way, I think the plan going forward, what I'm trying to work on is see if I can't get something published, written, something interesting, or some facts or some charts, like some of the stats and things I've been throwing out at you just in the podcast. They do make the point, and I'll still reference some of these stats as we go. But if I really want you to see them and be able to think about them a little bit, it's easier to put them on the website where you can read them and look at them. Eventually, maybe I'll be able to get some graphics here and display them as we go along, but not all the stats. I tend to use a lot of stats and a lot of history in these podcasts, and it probably has a lot to try to bring into this time. So I'm just going to try and go about 10 minutes here real quick and just hit some quick hitters for our kind of little over midweek, since it's Thursday podcast. Follow up on our Monday podcast where we went with reactions to the Auburn game and set up where we will still do our predictions, our breakdowns, our true outcomes for the Ole Miss game coming up on Saturday. We may not get that until sometime late Friday and or Saturday. There may be a two-parter. I'll let you know how that goes because I'll be traveling back home on Friday. But let's jump in real quick. So thanks for being here. Couple of things that I think we didn't get to do while we're just reacting to the game on Monday is to take a look at a little bit of the stats and what if anything they mean. Obviously, Georgia ultimately was able to pull out a 10-point win in the Auburn game. Obviously, Auburn dominated the first half of the game, and we dominated really not just the second half, but I guess the last drive of the first half and the second half of the game. And statistically speaking, those dominations were pretty similar. Auburn had about, I think, 237 yards of offense up until the fumble. And at that point, we only had maybe 20 or 30 yards of offense. We finished the first half with 78 yards of offense as we drive down the field, 88 yards, and get the field goal to make it 10-3 at the half. And then in the second half, we're going to generate, I think, about 220 yards of offense in the second half, because we're going to finish at about 296. Auburn finished at 277. So overall, while it felt like the defense was just eviscerated in the first half, they buttoned down, and the big picture, you have to say they had a pretty big game. We won the turnover battle. We were +1 on the turnover. They held Auburn to under 300 yards, which I think anytime you can hold a quality opponent to under 300 yards, I think that's an accomplishment on defense. And obviously 10 points or less. I would say 13 points or less is kind of my break point for Georgia defense. Anytime, any team, and it doesn't matter how good the team is, because we have been able to hold some Tennessee teams in the past that were putting up 50 points a game and 500 yards a game. We've been able to hold them to 10 and 13 points. So, and other really good offenses. So I think that sub 300, sub 13 point a game performance. So you may not like the route that Georgia took to get there. But I think that you have to feel like overall holding Auburn at home in front of a juiced crowd to 10 points and under 300 yards was a pretty good effort. And of course, the defense obviously stepped up and had the huge fumble during the game that was a turning point of the game. Like we talked about on Monday, I don't think that I want to go so far and say that's the winning play of the game. Auburn's still leading 10-0 at the moment of the fumble, and we're pinned in on our own 1-yard line. So Georgia had a lot of work to do to complete that game. But I think that even as we were driving it was 13-10 late in the fourth quarter, getting down to under 3 minutes, and we went on that long drive that started earlier in the fourth quarter. I think even as we started that drive, you really felt like even though the score was only a 3-point game, Georgia had clearly been controlling the game. It felt like Auburn was going to have to do something really miraculous to be able to pull this game out, and Georgia just sort of sucked the will out of that by by completing that drive. And one of the things I want to talk about in that drive real quick is a couple key points. I think with all the hoopla of the controversies and the calls and the fumble and all of that stuff, I think one thing that gets lost is that drive was a thing of beauty. And I heard, I think in the post game show, or maybe even Josh Brock on the during the audio broadcast, the Georgia Bulldog audio broadcast, might have referred to it as a championship drive. Not that we're clearly going to be champions now, that guarantees anything, but a championship team can put together that kind of drive. And I think this is, again, like we said on Monday, this is what we're finally seeing is the identity of this team, right? This team has championship pieces. At any half of a game, it can play the best defense of anybody in the country. For any half of a game, they can match any team, it seems like, blow for blow offensively. Mostly we seem to be a grinded out, and I mentioned that coming into the Auburn game. I said I thought our offense would win against the Auburn defense, even though I respect and think the Auburn defense is very good. I thought we would win because our offense really hasn't been stopped. They've been putting up 400 yards a game in just about every game, except for the Alabama game. And the only reason that was actually they had the best yard per play average of the season in the Alabama game. They just only had the ball 53 plays. So if we'd had it our normal, we averaged 72, 73 plays a game. So if we'd had it 72, 73 plays a game, you could have extrapolated that out and said we would have had close to 500, 450, 500 yards of offense in the Alabama game had we been able to play the complementary football we always talk about, where the defense gets the ball, makes a few more stops a little earlier. I mean, obviously, they stopped Alabama in the entire second half, but there were a couple moments, especially Alabama's second to last drive. They were able to get a first down or two, get off of their side of the field, punt us deep into their side of the field, and that cost us, right? We ended up getting about 40 yards before we gave the ball back, got back out to midfield, but that took us several minutes, and it took several minutes for Alabama to get forward. And that's one of the things we're seeing is games this year are against competitive and good teams, against top 25 teams. We're seeing a lot of these games. There's very few track meet games, blowout games where teams are chasing each other up and down the field. I mean, I think the Texas A&M Notre Dame game is one of the few games I can think of where you had ranked opponents that were scoring 40 something points a game, and it was a little bit of a track meet. Most, even like the Indiana Oregon game from this last weekend, 30-20, a relatively low scoring game compared to what you might see in some other big time matchups. A lot of games like our Alabama uh, game was 24-21. Alabama went on the road last weekend and had a gritty win, and they pulled it out 27-24 against a really good Missouri team, one that can run the ball really well. It's kind of a lot like Georgia. They're focusing on running the ball and playing really good defense, and they even have a formerly elite Georgia defender playing on their team now. Um, but what I want to do real quick in the time I have left, which is not very much, was to highlight that championship drive idea. That was a drive, I think I heard it said it might have been the longest drive by time in Georgia football history. I'm not sure if that's true. Hadn't had a chance to look that up, but it was definitely a monster drive. It was, let me just take a look again. Remember, it was 16 plays, 78 yards, covering 8 minutes and 45 seconds. That's a monster play. And there were two big plays, and London Humphreys is another guy who I think we want to call out and say, amongst all the people we've seen making great plays, and we talked about C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson, the plays they made on the defense, talked about how our defensive backs have been stepping up. Ellis Robinson's been playing better. Christian Miller's emerging as more of a force on the defensive line. We're seeing those people shape out, and Gunner is just becoming that gritty guy that he's maybe not making all the great plays and all the right plays every moment, but he's making gritty plays. And he is consistently keeping this offense heading towards 30 points a game, 400 something yards, which if the defense can be as good as they've been or a little better, then we could start to see a little more separation in these games. But, you can consistently still win the games. But that drive featured two big plays that London Humphreys was the beneficiary of. He caught a 3rd and 8 when we were on our own 24-yard line that would have forced us to punt the ball from in our territory and give Auburn a really good chance of getting the ball back and maybe driving to get the game tying touchdown with plenty of a game tying field goal even, or possibly a touchdown to take the lead with plenty of time left for them to operate and not have to move fast, possibly leaving us with very little time. So he catches a 17-yard pass on 3rd and 8, and that's a big play that gets that drive off our side of the field. And then later we get down to a 4th and 3, and Gunner rolls out to the right and in traffic throws just a rope right to, it's not very far away, but he gets it right over the line to London Humphreys, who secures the ball, gets the first down, and goes down. And that's another key play. It's a big play that helps us to, because you might have, I'd have to go look. Hold on, I will look real quick. That play took place. I forgot. I should have remembered coming into it, but that play took place. Let's see, at um, we were at the Auburn 40. So we're too far out for a field goal at that point, right? So you're I mean, you got to go for it on 4th down. That was a smart move. But even going for it on 4th down, if you leave the ball there, Auburn's got a chance again to drive and try to now tie the game up, or take the lead. But it's also the 5-minute mark in the game. So there's a lot of time left, but that's going to favor Auburn, because if they burn 2, 3, 4 minutes and tie the game up, then we don't get a chance to respond. You go to overtime. Worst case scenario, they score a touchdown. We maybe end up with a minute left and we got to do a quick offense to try to come back the other way. And we've got to score a touchdown to play, to get back in the game. A field goal is not going to do it for us. So this is a huge play, this 4th and 3. And I think it kind of got washed away a little bit with all of the other stuff going on. And this was it was a great play by Gunner. He gets outside the pocket. He finds the guy. There's a lot of traffic, but he picks out the pass on the run, hits London Humphreys. London Humphreys secures the ball, gets over that line, goes down, 7-8 yard gain. And now we're in business. And even if we didn't score, we're going to go, well, we're going to give the ball back to them. They're going to end up with the ball with about 1 minute and 40 seconds to go after we score. So this allows us to also burn another 3 minutes off the clock at this point in the game. So this was a really key drive, or a key play, and it meant a lot at that point in the game. So listen, I'm going to call it there. A couple things I just want to point out. I guess what we can see from here is we talked about how the identity of the team is a gritty, never die, find their way back from the dead team, and that's great. I think the other thing that should look at here and say, what are we looking for? What do we want to see develop from this team? We're going to need to see that offensive line come together. And hopefully for the first part of that's just getting healthy. I'm seeing guys make some plays and playing better. They're just have not been healthy. And we've got too many mix and match combos. We need to see the defense actually play the whole game, not just half a game. And we need to keep working on running the ball and stopping the run. Even though we won this game, this was the first time all year we lost the run battle. We gave up more yards rushing than we had. We were held under 100 yards rushing, way below our over 200-yard average, and Auburn got over 100 yards. They didn't have a great run game, 140 yards for them. A decent job by the defense, but not as good as it has been. So those are things we're going to be talking about, looking for going forward. We're going to just sort of pick it up from here and start digging into Ole Miss and what we're looking for at Ole Miss, what we think Ole Miss can do, what's the matchup look like, and what is everybody saying about us coming out of this thing. So thank you very much. I know this was a really short one, but I appreciate you being with us. Have a great day and go Dogs.